What are your memories of that time?
Oh my goodness, traveling like crazy, doing massive raves and performing to anywhere from between 5 to 10,000 people. And for me, coming from Africa and doing that was just such an eye opener. I loved it,
And
loved
did you
it.
did you have any idea how big the song would be when you recorded it?
I had no clue whatsoever, Chris. I just knew it was a good song. And you know what's become now over 30 years later is just surreal.
Yeah, it's one of those anthems, isn't it? One of those dance anthems that still gets played even today.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible. And I think apart from the song being so good and the message in the song is so positive to everyone all over the world, and you take it to however you want it to mean for you. Um, One of the reasons also apart from that is I think the song's been kept alive by the constant new remixes over the years. You know, talent artists going on shows like X Factor or whatever, singing Everybody's Free, which there have been a few. The adverts, you know, the Cravendale milk advert springs to mind, which puts a smile on my face. And, you know, things like that have kept this song alive.
Yeah, and it was a hit in many countries, wasn't it? Not just over
But
here, but everywhere, really.
that's right. That's right. It was a hit in many countries. And yeah, it's just been amazing.
So, you got many gigs planned this year?
I have. I've got quite a few gigs. I was quiet in the month of April. So my husband said, yep, the calm before the storm. So starting from the 27th of April, which was a couple of weeks ago, um, nearly every single weekend I've got a gig until the end of the year.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's what we like to hear.
it's what we like to hear. And some of them are like double ups. I'll probably do 2 or 3 gigs in a day. And I think, you know, COVID did that, you know. So yeah. So I think, you know, in this industry, Chris, it's such a fickle industry. You know, you make hay when the sun shines. But apart from that, I still do genuinely love doing what I'm doing. So I'm still here.
Great. And you also have a new album out called Turn on the Lights. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, well, that should have been released during COVID, sadly, but sadly, COVID happened. So we decided to release during that time about 3 singles, I think. We've since released a new single now called Lot of Love, and that's doing really nicely. And we released the album on the 26th of February this year. So Gary Simmons, who runs the label I'm on, it's just a small label. That's been going for about 30 years, and I'm very proud of him in his own right and the artists that are on it. So we've got a new single planned to be released. I'm not sure when, a few weeks time. Yeah, so we're just going to keep churning them out, Chris.
Great. And what was the process like of making that album?
Oh, it was wonderful. I would go usually to Wood Green, and Paul Miles was a producer, engineer who would record me. It's his studio called Select Studios, and just a nice little small studio that he uses. And it was just such a pleasure going in there. And, you know, on the way to the studio, we passed Morrison's, get some sandwiches, something to drink, going to the studio, and we're just there for like the next few hours, you know, doing takes and takes upon takes for, you know, whatever song we might have been recording that day.
And for people who haven't heard the album yet, can you give us an idea of what songs are on there?
Well, Gary and I thought, you know, because people know me as a dance artist, you know, we didn't want to do an album that was all completely dance. You know, I've grown up. I've got different facets to my voice that, you know, I could do ballads, I could do mid-tempo. So Gary and I wanted to do an album that had hands in the air type style music for which the fans know me for. And we've also got some mid-tempo tracks, and we've got some ballads, and we've got a few covers that were released, I don't know, in the 70s and the 80s. In fact, A Lot of Love was released in 1978 by the late Nicolette Larson. Sadly, she's not with us anymore. So I hope she's looking down and thinking, yeah, you did a good job. So we released that and we made it ours. I made it my own song. that's, you know, and modernized it. And on the album, I did a track which I can't stop listening to because the mix is so great. So I owe it to the producers. It's called Baby Come Back, and that was done by a group called Player. And I think that was done in the 80s. So there's things like that. There's some surprises on there. I hope, you know, people will enjoy listening to this album.
Bet they will. And that's a great poster behind you. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, thank you. That's me. That's the cover of Everybody's Free, the album. Everybody's Free to Feel Good. Yeah. Whenever I do Zoom interviews, because as you can see, the window is there, so it gets too much light. So I face it this way because I think, well, maybe hopefully the light is a bit better, and it always catches the eyes of whoever's interviewed me, and I have to explain that's, you know, the Everybody's Free album. And my husband's like, no, don't do that. Do it on a blank wall because they might think you're being big-headed. I'm like, no, it's a part of
No,
my life. I can't
it looks
hide it.
great. It looks really good.
Thank you. Now you've said that, Chris, that's going to be in the background all the time because you've given me the thumbs up.
And who are some of your musical influences yourself?
As a child growing up, I loved listening to Aretha Franklin. I loved listening to Barbara Streisand. There were some African artists involved, like Letta Mbulu, who's not, I'm sorry, Letta Mbulu and Miriam Makeba, who's no longer with us. She was a South African artist, and she was just powerful. You know, so I loved listening to all styles of music as well. And I was very influenced in Zambia, growing up in Zambia and Zimbabwe, by Western style music as well. And I guess that's where I am today, because that's the path I wanted to be on, of doing music and singing songs that were in English.
Yeah, and have you always sung?
I've always sung all my life. It's all I ever wanted to do, all my life. I just thought I got to try it. And to be honest, coming to the UK, I thought in Zimbabwe, I felt I'd gotten as far as I could go, and I needed to break out and become international if I was going to make a living from this, because that's what I wanted to do, was to make a living from singing. And I didn't know what was going to happen. So 30 some odd years later, I'm making a living from it, you know, and it's just till today, Chris, so amazing to me that I get booked to do shows and I get paid to sing anywhere between 5 minutes to a 45-minute set, which is wow, you know. But it also is a very fickle industry, and that's why you just like take the work when it comes and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, what do you think it is about that 90s era that there were so many great dance tunes, wasn't there?
Absolutely. I was just talking to one of my friends the other day, and you could say I'm biased, but when I look back at the 90s and the 80s, you know, I think that that's when music was music. That was the best. You had real singers singing real songs that had verses, choruses, a bridge. You know, there are still some dotted about today, like Adele is, for me, is like just incredible. But really, the 80s and the 90s, what can I say?
Yeah, and like you say, you don't always get that in songs today, do you? It seems to be a chorus sort of repeated over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, it's just repetitive, and you know, you enjoy it the first or second time, and then afterward you're just thinking, I just want a song with, you know, tell me my heart's been broken, or how's it going to be fixed, or about love, or whatever. And there's not much of that going on.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Rozalla. It's been lovely to speak to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate that. And thank you for doing the call earlier, because I thought it was going to be later on, but there you go. Thank you.
That's all right. No problem. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Lots of love. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.